Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live Third Apron podcast. I am your host, Yossi Goslin. Here with me, as always, my co-host, Sam Quinn. I thought today we might be talking about the Knicks, but I think that will most likely be on hold because we got some breaking news last night. Jimmy Butler got that bad injury. It looked like when he caught the ball, he landed kind of straight on his leg, and it kind of bent awkwardly, and it pretty much, as everyone suspected, looked like a torn ACL. And at midnight Pacific time last night, we got the confirmation that is what it is. So now he's out for the year. I imagine he's going to miss the beginning of next season too, given how late into the year this ACL injury happened. Major turn for the Warriors season. I cannot really see them. Well, we'll get into that. I do want to talk about both how they project internally before they get into any other moves. And as of course, this will definitely change their trade deadline. This will alter things a little bit as well. But independent from whatever trade they could do to save their season, I kind of just want to talk about the Warriors first. What is your outlook on them? And is there anyone you're looking to that could step up, not necessarily to save them, but now someone else is going to have to get a couple more shots too?
No, they're fucked, at least as currently constructed. Like, one of the many problems that the Warriors have, like, again, we've talked about them a lot. There are a lot of issues on this team, but one of the big ones is that so much of their roster, especially on the perimeter, is just kind of a lot of versions of the same player, like the undersized shooting guard that wants to shoot threes and doesn't really get to the basket, the Buddy Hields and the Pajemskis and you just go down the list, D'Anthony Melton. They have all of these guys who are kind of in that same size range. They have the highest three-point attempt rate in the NBA. They take more threes than twos. Jimmy Butler is like the only guy on that team that ever gets to the line or gets to the rim. He's responsible for just under 30% of their free throw attempts this year. He has scored 370 points in the paint. Stephen Curry is the only guy on the team who has half that money. Like, he is the only player on that team that pressures the rim, unless you're like the 2016 Warriors or the 2017 Warriors, where you have Steph and you have Clay and you have Durant. Like, you have all of this shooting everywhere. You can't be a jump shooting team that generates no rim pressure whatsoever, because your shots just aren't going to be open. Like, it's kind of just that simple. I know Steph has still, even now, like, incredible gravity. Steph is still playing at, I think, an all NBA level, like probably still a top 10 player in the NBA, give or take. There's just no one else on this team that really creates any other sort of consistent offensive threat. The whole theory of this offense falls apart. They never get offensive rebounds anymore, right? Like, losing Kevon Looney kind of killed their offensive rebounding, which had been a strength for a long time. They still turn the ball over a lot. They do that every year. That's a feature of their offense because they pass the ball so much and there's so much movement. But you dealt with that because you had Curry and you had Butler. So you were getting enough out of this system that it was justifiable to turn the ball over as much as they do. Well, now it's not, because you have no rim pressure and no ability to draw fouls. The defense is going to be worse without Jimmy. Like, they were a 500 team last year without Jimmy, and that was with Steph as a year younger and Draymond as a year younger. And, like, I think Draymond's a little bit worse this year. Still a very good defender, not really in the defensive player of the year conversation. Offense has obviously been an adventure with him forever. They're done. They have nothing, at least as currently constructed. We'll go through all the trades, but, like, there's no hope here. Like, you're going to do the thing where you say, like, oh, if this guy steps up or if this guy patches in this thing, like, no, there's none of that. There's no internal hope. It's all about, like, maybe you can make a drastic change to the roster that addresses all of these issues, but, like, with the guys on the team, there's nothing here. They're done.
Yeah. When you look at how they were last year, they were pretty much a 500-ish team before they brought in Jimmy. And this year he's been amazing. I mean, he came in last year, they immediately started winning most of their games, and that's carried over sort of into this year now, especially with the run that they've had since basically the end of their last 15 games have gone 11-4, 7.3 net rating, fourth best offense. I'm a little more worried about their offense than their defense. I think now, before you even make any trade, you're going to have to see if first you're going to play a couple games. A lot of players are going to get more shots, and we're going to have to see. They're going to have to see like what they can do without him. But I don't think there's anyone that's going to replace Jimmy. He's not going to be he wasn't going to be an all-star this year, but he was having an all-star-ish level season with the production.
If they were
he
like
had.
5 games better, he would have been an all-star, I think. Like, I think just nobody wants to reward that Warriors team because they just haven't played as well as we would have hoped. If the statistical profile was all-star caliber, I think.
Yeah, if he was in the East, maybe also he would have gotten at least some consideration. So now as I look at the roster, like, first of all, Curry, he's already mostly maxed out. Now I imagine this is going to put a lot more pressure on him. Maybe you can get like another 5-10% extra out of him, but the last thing you want is to jeopardize him. So first of all, we can expect slightly bigger load for Curry, most likely, which I'm definitely concerned about. As far as who's going to be the number 2 now, you like some of the guys have gotten more shots in recent days. You got Pods, Brandon Pajemski, D'Anthony Melton, Moses Moody, and they all been playing reasonably well within this stretch that they've had. I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is going to get back into the rotation.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's over. It's still over. I don't think this is the type of thing where they're relieved they kept him. I don't think he's re-entering the rotation. I think it's just kind of dead. Yeah. I mean, it's sad because like there is an argument here that the team is in such dire straits that maybe the thing that makes sense is to just play Jonathan Kuminga 35 minutes a game and say, you can take whatever shots you want. Like just for the next 3 months, we have nothing to play for. Like go sell yourself. Maybe like we're not going to salvage this season, but increase your trade value so we can trade you for a bundle in the offseason and like you go prove yourself. Like there's a version of this where that makes sense. I think the relationship is just so soured that that's off the table. I agree. So first thing I'm guessing is that Brandon Pajemski becomes the number 2 now, which
it's a sobering thought.
I don't think that's going to save their season. I think they're at best still going to tread 500. But I do think there is like a possibility that maybe he starts to reestablish himself a little more, get back on path to where he was looking like last season. Not that he's ever going to be like, I wouldn't expect him to be like a great second or even third option, but if maybe now that he's going to get more shots for sure, I think he's going to get the second most shots. Maybe he could establish himself as a top option as far as just offensively, and and then hopefully they can get someone else to be a higher option than him. That's I guess the most optimistic thing I'm looking at. Just let's see if he can start to carry a lot of the offensive load. I would expect that they're probably going to slip though. I think they're going to be closer to the play-in. I think they were already still going to be headed towards the play-in, given how tough it is in the West, as great as this run was. So that's basically internal. Anything else on the roster you're looking at before we get into the trade deadline?
I mean, I do kind of just want to take a second and say, like, man, this sucks. Like, Jimmy's 36. How many 36-year-olds have ever come back from an ACL and played at an all-star level? Like, we might have seen the last of elite Jimmy Butler, like consistent all-star level Jimmy Butler. He's going to be a free agent 27. Like, I would assume this is not a Kyrie situation where Dallas paid him last year and they're probably going to sit him out all of this year. Like, no, Jimmy is going to be a free agent in 27 and he's going to want to come back and establish himself and reestablish his value. I don't know if that's the best idea given his age. Like, I would probably be a little bit more cautious, but either way, I just like, this is like not one of the defining players of this era, but like a very, very memorable NBA character and a great, great player for the last decade, a little bit more than that. It just kind of sucks. We should kind of say that.
Yeah, no, one of the bigger unexpected meteoric rises, end of the first round guy, played a lot, like clearly a guy that coaches, especially Tom Thibodeau, had a lot of belief in, even though it took a little while for it to come along. Like he was leading the league in minutes very early on in his career, I remember. And then, yeah, towards the end of Chicago, he really started to become that star that he shifted into. With Jimmy, he's always consistently defied age and what should have been regression for a player like him, where I remember 5 years ago, he signed that max extension with the Heat. And I think you and I both felt like that's probably going to be a negative value contract. And I think the past few years was the end of it, and he exceeded it. That 2023 run will always be, if not the most exciting playoff surprise in my lifetime, it's definitely up there. For him to will the Heat as an 8 seed all the way to the finals against some pretty tough competition for the East standards that year. That was the year when the East was actually, that was one of the few years where the East was actually better than the West. And he was 33. Yeah.
I think like the year, if we're going to do this, the year the East was better than the West was 2019 when he was in Philly, when they played Toronto, and then Milwaukee. And Boston had so much talent, but obviously it never came together.
Oh, okay. So let me clarify. I mean, like in the aggregate, like wins, losses.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. If you want to talk about the true contender, yes, 2019 was stacked. And I don't think the East ever got back to those highs. Yeah. But just a pretty tough path for the Heat, in my opinion, in that 23 run. And he was 33 years old when he did that. No one expected that. And he still held up toward 35, 36 playing at this level. You think that this is probably the end of Jimmy at this elite level. And I have to say, like, probably. I could see him coming back just given his history and how well he's sustained his high level of production. I would think he's probably going to come back and still be effective. But chances are him being a max level player, those days are probably gone, which kind of is a good dovetail to the trade deadline, because I think now it's the Warriors do need to decide now what they want to do with him, because my instinct is that, and your and I instinct, everyone else is that they should probably look to trade him as well. That's $54 million just sitting there. Can you turn that into someone who could play this year? The fact that he might miss a good chunk of next year, now we don't even know what kind of player he's going to be when he comes back. That does add a level of urgency to do something with him as well. At the same time, now that he's hurt, I have to imagine that the Warriors might be even more unwilling, more tepid to trade multiple first-round picks. I think going into the trade deadline, their plan was hopefully just trade Kuminga with one first, this upcoming first, protected, and get a good shooter, get a good big man, get someone who can add to this lineup. We'll get into the trades. Maybe there's ways they can mitigate the amount of draft equity, keep it to the same level they want to trade. But it's going to be tough to get value for him without getting too deep into the picks, because now I'd feel more apprehensive to trade multiple firsts with him gone. So that's my first instinct. Last year, they traded their pick to the Heat. They top 10 protected it. I got to imagine they're going to want to at least fully lotto protect it, because I think the margin for error is that, look, if they're in the play-in, they can easily miss the playoffs. They're 1-2 in the play-in tournament. They're not great in it at all. Only last year they got their first play-in tournament, like got through the play-in tournament in the times they've been in it. And then if you're another team, how valuable is that protected pick? Especially knowing how shaky they've been the past few years. They're just more so a playing team these past few years. It's going to be tough. It makes it a lot more complicated.
You'd have to do something where, like, it's lottery protected this year, but then it's top 4 protected next year. Like, you couldn't do a perpetual lottery protection if you're going to get anything meaningful, I don't think. I would not go deep into the future for anything. Like, there's no world now where 2032 is on the table. Like, even for Giannis, like, say they could trade Jimmy and all of their picks for Giannis. Like, so what? Like, so what? What would this team be with Steph and Giannis and Draymond? Like, there's no world in which I would give up the deep future picks at this stage. Like, we're going to go through stuff. I think most of the trades that I have can be accomplished either with no picks or with just 2026 and you figure out the protections, there's just no universe in which I give up the deep future picks. Like the world in which you maybe could have talked yourself into that would have been healthy Steph, healthy Jimmy, matching money with other stuff, whether that was Kuminga or several role players or whatever. But like you needed to feel like you had two all-stars in the building already. And now, like any trade they make, you're just trying to get back up to the baseline you were at with Jimmy. Like if they make a really good trade, they might be just as good as they were with Jimmy. I am not giving up a 2032 pick to do that.
Yeah. So we'll see what kind of trades they do. I think it's just they're going to try to trade their pick this year. My gut tells me just with all this happening, I think they're going to just most likely keep Jimmy, not for a lack of trying to trade him, just with all the difficulties now and how much draft picks the typical team's going to ask for. I would rather just hold him onto my picks. And if that means keeping Jimmy and writing this out for at least through the offseason, then so be it. You're probably a first round exit at best. And at that point, I don't think the Kuminga trade is going to bring back anyone so meaningfully significant that it's going to change their outlook, and just try to figure it out from there.
Well, also, I just want to point something out. The last two lottery winners have come from the play-in tournament. If you think like you keep Jimmy, we're just going to be in the play-in because we've banked that many wins already. I don't know. If you go into lottery night with the 11th best odds or whatever, something like that, that's not the worst place to be. Like, I don't think it would be that terrible for them if they just were bad for the rest of the year, made a lottery pick and kind of figured it out over the summer. Like that's not the worst outcome for them, since they do need to be planning for post Steph anyway. And like, even if they don't jump up, having the 12th or 13th pick is a pretty good place for them to be.
Yeah. So I just want to get back to the protected pick thing, because when the Heat got Jimmy Butler, if you're the Heat, you're probably feeling pretty confident, especially with the protection being that low, like top 10, that the Warrior, that pick was going to convey. And it's worth noting, because I already forgot the protections. I had to look it up. It was like lottery protected or also top 10 the following year before being unprotected in 2027. The protection would have to be kind of similar. I think at most it would have to end at 2028, because they did trade their 2030 pick to the Wizards. So it'd also be like a 2 extra year protection at most. But if I'm another team getting a protected pick from the Warriors, I'm definitely more afraid now about the possibility that things go so wrong that they could end up pivoting towards not necessarily like intentionally trying to bottom out, but if Steph gets some kind of injury that takes him out multiple weeks, they could
literally happen. They've had gap years. Like they've done that.
Yeah. There is a pretty good likelihood that they could end up having to pivot towards the lottery, and it just becomes a situation where now they're trying to jockey to keep their pick, and now that transfers into next year, in which case that also really complicates the Warriors' tradable picks. So we'll get into that, but I do think that becomes a stronger likelihood. And again, in which case it's going to be tough for a team to get a protected pick from the Warriors, knowing that could happen. I think I would almost think it's like a close to 50-50 proposition that something ends up happening, that the possibility of them entering the lottery prevents them from getting that pick. So Sam,
just one last thing before we actually start making fake trades. I think last year there was a real impetus within the organization. We have to do right by Steph. We have to try. I don't think that's there this year. Do you agree with me? Like the fact that they made the Jimmy trade already, they have kind of sent their message to Steph and Draymond that we have tried. Like this went wrong for reasons that were entirely out of our control. Nobody's at fault here, but like you guys understand that we have a future that we have to think about, and we're not going to mortgage it for you guys. And I think Draymond has even reportedly said behind the scenes, like, yeah, you guys have to think about the future. Like, don't mortgage it for our sake. So do you agree with me? There's not going to be an impetus to do something like really irresponsible for the sake of like, we owe it to Steph, we owe it to Draymond.
Yeah, which is why I could see Steph being amenable to that sort of pivot if it gets to it. That's something that's more like end of February, early March. I think they'd understand. They've, like you said, it's happened before. 2020 was the biggest example where I mean the season never really started for them. Was there a season where they just maybe it was like this? They started pretty reasonably well. They were headed towards the playoffs, and then they had to pivot.
Well,
I'm
not
not
towards
sure
the
there
playoffs,
was.
but the one that comes to mind, you have to go really far back, was I think 2012-13, the year they had, I think it was a top 8 protected pick, and they really aggressively tanked because that pick became Harrison Barnes. Like they really aggressively tanked towards the end of that year.
Oh,
I don't
right.
know if they were ever really in the playoff race, but that's the only year where they've like really, really tanked that I remember that they weren't at the absolute bottom.
Right. All right. So, yeah, I guess I'll defer to you. Do you want to start with Jimmy trades or do you want to get to Kuminga trades if they're different now? Like where do you start?
Let's start with Jimmy because I'm gonna take you to some weird places.
Okay.
We'll start with the responsible ones and then we're gonna get weird. Um, I think Dallas is pretty straightforward. Anthony Davis, Klay Thompson, Jaden Hardy for Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, and Will Richard. Like that's very straightforward to me. Dallas gets off of longer term money. AD obviously has 2 years left on his deal. Jimmy only has 1. Klay has 2 years left on his deal. Hardy has 3 years. They would like Kuminga as like a long term lottery ticket to see if he makes sense next to Cooper Flag. I probably would not put my 2026 pick in the deal, mostly because I don't know what the market for Anthony Davis is right now. I think this just makes plenty of sense for both sides. Dallas probably wants a little bit more. I maybe would do seconds. I wouldn't put the first round pick in there, but I think that's a totally plausible starting point, right?
So you did text me about this general framework privately. You fleshed it more out now with the inclusion of Will Richard and Jaden Hardy because remember everyone. So I'm going to pull up the cap sheets. The Warriors are above the first apron and are hard capped to the second apron. They are restricted from exceeding that $207.8 million amount. They're right below it. They really have no way to exceed it. Any trade they do by the rules of being over the first apron, they have to send out more than they're taking out. So what makes this construction interesting is you're basically doing Butler for AD straight up. They both make the same exact number. And then if you're looking at Kuminga for Klay makes about 16.6. And so they could still take another player back. So that's where Jaden Hardy comes in. Maybe like D'Angelo Russell, someone in that range. So I do think the Mavs would require first. And if I'm the Warriors, this is where that super heavily lottery protected one, maybe even more than lottery protected, maybe slightly more like top 16, even 17, something like that. Just because
Well,
chances
can I stop
are
you right here really quick?
I'm just saying chances are because the West teams that make it, the worst, the 8th seed will probably be like the 17th or 18th pick. Given how bad the East, like 3 through 8, they're all separated within 3 games. So you could probably protect it a little more if you're the Warriors. For the Mavs, it might be more of just a optics pick. But as long as the protections on the future years are reasonable, I think you kind of come out fine. And if that means, okay, the Warriors, you have to take on like D'Angelo Russell, for example, who's got another year left. Okay, I think I would do it if I'm the Warriors.
If you're giving up the first, I think you also have to include a Buddy Hield for Najee Marshall swap because without Jimmy Butler and obviously Kuminga being in the deal, Golden State just has no wing size defenders. So you'd have to get Najee Marshall in the deal too.
I like that. So I was looking at Najee Marshall as a potential addition because he's like all the players the Warriors are getting back in this trade on the wing or at guard, they don't have the same level of physicality as Jimmy. They're not going to replicate that, but Najee at least gives you like some semblance of physicality at the wing. I would imagine that it would start him at the 3 for sure, and he could help them immediately. I think that makes it a lot more fair because, again, with the Mavs, I think a lot of it is more so optics. If you can just get a first, even if it's heavily protected, as long as you can reasonably convey it in the next year or two, then maybe there's something to be done there.
Aside from the Anthony Davis component of this, and I think that's going to be one of the big rumors for the next 2 weeks up to the deadline, can we just talk about Klay Thompson for a second? Because we both think this era of Warriors basketball, at least the competitive portion of it, is probably over. So if nothing else, I don't think it would be a bad idea if they reached out to Klay's camp privately and they just said like, hey, would you maybe want to like mend fences here and just come back and let's do like a year and a half greatest hits tour for the end of the dynasty, like Miami and Dwayne Wade did when he was in Cleveland and eventually came back, like where you do something like Buddy Hield and whatever contracts just for Klay to make that work. However, you have to make the money work, or you make it a 3-teamer or whatever. I think that would give this fan base something to root for when obviously the season has kind of fallen off the rails. If you're not going to compete for a title, I think having the chance, like over a year and a half, genuinely say goodbye to Steph and Draymond and Klay and Kerr. Like, I think there is something to that where that would be making the best of a bad situation. Like, independent of AD, where do you fall on the Klay stuff?
I think just everything, given everything that's going on right now, it's such a low risk move at this point to bring him back. As I think there's definitely something to be done between both teams. So I don't really have a problem with it. They're not going to need that flexibility for next year. They're already going to be up against that second apron again, have the same team more or less rolled over. I would then just try to rebalance the roster a little bit because the Warriors are already flushed with so many 2 guards. So that would be the next step. As long as you can try to get a little more size, because you need to address the big. Like I don't have a problem with them bringing back Klay. He has played a lot better as of late. As long as the rest of they got enough size to make up for the current lack of size they have, and they'll probably still have in a hypothetical AD trade. We still don't know what if he's going to come back. I would imagine he probably will be back. So I think at this point, even with the injuries aside, if the Warriors have to wait a little bit for AD, before that, I already liked the idea of trading a 36-year-old Jimmy for 33-year-old AD, despite the injuries. I think I'd take the risk and put up with it. If you're taking Klay as well, for all the reasons you laid out, I think that's great.
I kind of like the idea of Jimmy coming back on the Mavs next year too. Like, imagine the Mavs going into the playoffs next year, going in the play-in wherever they are, and it's like, wait, this is the number 8 seed, and their starting lineup is Kyrie Irving, Cooper Flag, Jimmy Butler, Derek Lively being healthy and back, whoever the shooting guard. Like, that'd be kind of scary to play as a play-in team. Like, I know that's not what we're thinking about here, but it's not nothing either. Like, Jimmy would give them value at the end of next season if they were trying to win.
I think that's more so a future asset flip because if
Right,
they're doing,
saying.
yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because they'll play him. They have to show the league that he's playing pretty well. I think there's value in him playing with Cooper a little bit. That could help a little bit with his development, show him a couple things. Same thing with Kyrie right now, where now we finally got an update. Sounds like he's targeting next month to come back. And they're going to have to show the league a little bit that he is still playing at a high level. So then they could hopefully flip him in the offseason. So, yeah, you bring in Jimmy. I wouldn't expect him to help them too much in the standings. Maybe depending on the roster they put together for next year. Like if they can get a lot more younger, athletic, a lot more shooting pieces on the roster, and Cooper continues to take another next step, maybe they could surprise and not necessarily make the playoff, just not be a bottom tier team. And Jimmy could definitely help with that. And then you just want to capitalize on that, try to trade him later. So it's more so a future asset flip by bringing in Jimmy, which
I think the problem with that though, like nobody's trading for him at 54 million. Like
well, it's a big
under any.
He's a big.
Like that's
he's a. Oh, go ahead.
No, like they're like if you say he comes back next January and next February is the deadline, you're not rehabbing his value in the course of a month and then trading him for value at 54 million unless it was like very strictly to take on long-term money, which I don't think they'd want to do because they'll have that window after Cooper Flagg's third year where he'll be a pretty desirable recruiter and they'll want to have financial flexibility. They're not going to want to take on a long-term deal at that point.
He's also a big expiring salary, so there could be something there as well where they're facilitating something more, so maybe taking on some worse money, some picks, and then some team is taking in Jimmy, maybe a contender that could afford to bring him in, takes him in, doesn't cost them too much. Like if you can come, if let's say the Mavs do that in a year from now, they could turn Jimmy into mostly players with another year left on their contract. And let's say they don't even come out with like a crappy first round pick. You get like 3-4 seconds. Okay, that's something. So we'll see. We'll see if there is positive value there, but it could be a good facilitator at least.
All right, let's go on to Sacramento. There's the easy version of the trade, which is just Jimmy for LaVine and whatever other salary you need to balance it out. That the concept for Sacramento there would be that they're trying to tank. So like just getting LaVine off of the roster, even though it's the same length of contract, would have value to them. And Golden State would just get a good player for a player that they can't use. Obviously, they'd have to do other things to balance out the roster. The more complicated version of this trade, I'm pretty proud of myself for making a trade involving over $90 million on both sides, balanced in terms of like this works against the aprons, works against the tax, just works. Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, Keon Ellis, and Doug McDermott for Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and 2 first-round picks. That's the like bigger, more fun version of this, where the Warriors totally rebuild their starting lineup. Only Steph and Draymond would remain, and they would start LaVine, Sabonis, and Ellis with those guys.
So you said LaVine, Sabonis, Ellis, and McDermott for Jimmy, Kuminga, Moody, and Hield?
Yes.
I would think the Warriors still have to trade a first. And it could
I have
be
2 firsts in there, so
you
fine.
did. Okay.
Yeah.
Warriors sending out 2 firsts?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't catch that. I'm just trying to get it all down. I thought about LaVine. The Warriors have been linked to LaVine in the past. They have been linked to Sabonis as well at times. So this is like almost like a rehaul. Like, and I would guess that this is something they're going like just completely changing the roster around stuff. That could be something now on the table. I remember, I think like before they made this run, I remember I texted you privately, hey, like if the Warriors don't pick this up, like could they even have like a Cavs 2018 style midseason rehaul where they just turn over almost the entire roster around Curry because it just doesn't seem to be working. Now that's a little less likely, even with the Jimmy injury. But if you can turn Jimmy's 54 million and Kuminga's money into guys that they've been interested in, I don't think this Sabonis. I think Sabonis can actually really help the Warriors. I think they could figure out a way to really optimize him. LaVine, more so a healthy body at this point. And if you're able to get Ellis as well, that's really creative. I really like that. I thought about LaVine. I didn't get into an exact trade. It was more so conceptual. This is a really nice one. I don't know. I guess they have to trade 2 picks. It does make sense.
They would just need to go find a wing-sized defender in there somewhere because Keon Ellis is a very good defender, but he's too small to be guarding wings. Like, could you go do something else to get Najee Marshall? I guess like maybe you're trading like Horford another contract to do that. I haven't like gone that far down the rabbit hole, but like you'd have to do something. But that's like if your core is Steph, LaVine, Draymond, and Sabonis, it's kind of interesting. Like that's not a championship team, but it's pretty fun.
Really quickly, for those of you wondering what the Warriors like draft pick situation is, I do want to illustrate it. Now on capsheets.com, I've added draft picks where I have a team's draft pick situation over the next 7 years. And I didn't color code them like I do here, but I do explain how many a team could trade. the first round pick situation, I'm not too worried about. They can trade multiple right now. It's mostly the second round pick situation that will make it difficult for them to pursue a role player such as a Keon Ellis or a Najee Marshall individually. They don't have any second round picks. They technically have their own 2030, but that they can't trade it because it's encumbered to their 2030 first. They owe the Wizards. So assuming that doesn't convey, which I think there's a very good chance it doesn't convey, then the Wizards would instead get this pick. And then the 2032 pick that they have, they already traded it as a super protected pick. So they're probably going to keep it. But the team, if they were to trade it again, it's at the very end of the draft. And chances are the pick won't even go that far. It should probably be low 40s at this rate. So they don't really have any second round picks to trade. So it's going to have to be something like Sam proposed, where you can get a Najee Marshall or Keon Ellis as part of a bigger deal and you trade a first round pick or two to make it happen. That's realistically their best shot at getting these guys making between the minimum to the mid level who can be very valuable to them. It just, or swaps or first round pick swaps, which very few teams in the league really, really value. You'd have to work with like the Warriors or Spurs. They value those.
The other thing is, if you're giving up 2 first round picks, you could also just say, hey, Kings, like you got to give us some seconds to trade out in another deal so we can make this a 3-teamer. Like you get a little bit of leverage if you're giving out 2 first round picks, and maybe you're a little bit more open to negotiation on which first round picks if that's what you're doing. So enough about Sacramento. Let's get to the one that I actually have spent a little bit of thought on, and I'm actually kind of excited by. This is a 3-team trade. The Philadelphia 76ers get Jimmy Butler, Nikola Vucevic, and Gary Payton II. Gary Payton, yeah. The Chicago Bulls get Buddy Hield, Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, and 4 second-round picks. The Philadelphia 76ers, oh, no, I already said them. The Golden State Warriors get Joel Embiid and Quentin Grimes. The logic for Philly is you are getting off of Joel Embiid scot-free. You are paying Quentin Grimes to do that. That is a tough loss. I think getting off of 2 supermax years for Embiid is worth that price. It would either be Grimes or McCain, whoever Golden State prefers. I think there's an argument on both sides. Like maybe the Warriors don't want to pay Quentin Grimes his next contract. Then maybe you do Jared McCain, but that's the idea. I actually like the idea of Embiid for Golden State for one big reason, which is that there's so much variability in what his next few years could look like. Because if Joel Embiid is right, you're getting an MVP, which like, okay, now you really have something with him and Steph. But if it doesn't go right, what a great cover for a stealth tank. And like if Golden State wanted to tank in the near future, Embiid's injury would give them some cover to do that. So it is a high risk, high reward maneuver that does not involve you giving up picks. And I like that concept.
Okay, so I didn't go that far. I did think of Philly, but more so for Paul George. I'm assuming you also made
That's
like a Paul George trade.
Yeah, Paul George for Jimmy Butler, straight up, where Golden State gets a player who can actually play, and Philly gets off the last year of the George contract. That is very easy. You can do that straight up.
So let's just touch on that one really quickly, because I thought about that conceptually. I'm pretty sure they could do the swap straight up. Maybe the Sixers have to send out another small salary.
Put like Eric Gordon in there. You put a minimum in there.
Yeah. I think if you're the Sixers, you're probably not going to get a first in that swap. Can you do it? So I know the Sixers would push for a first. They'd push for something. But if push comes to shove, you can do this swap straight up without any, and you're not getting draft equity. I'd probably just do it. You get 1 year less with Butler. Like as good as the Sixers are doing right now, this isn't the team that's going to be their playoff, sustainable long-term playoff contender. This is still a bridge to the next era, which is most likely not going to involve Embiid. Definitely not going to involve Paul George. So if you can just get off Paul George a year earlier, he has 1 more year left than Jimmy Butler, so that's what I mean. Makes it a lot easier to trade Jimmy next year and to significantly change the roster around Maxey and Edgecombe next offseason. As to the Embiid one, I my brain says if I'm the Sixers, again, same thing. You just do it because Embiid has 2 more years more on his contract than Jimmy does. And that's going to be a worse contract. Embiid's looking good. It just seems like a matter of time again before something happens to his knee. I don't think he's ever, I'm skeptical he's going to get back to the MVP type level the Sixers need for them to become a true title contender. So if that is on the table, maybe use this opportunity now to just get off that contract. I would guess the Warriors probably aren't going to be interested in that.
I agree with that. Can I just ask why? What else are they doing with that money? Their books after next season are basically blank. If you can like take this swing now and maybe it works, it might not. I'm not going to sit here and say I trust Joel Embiid's health. But if it doesn't work, you have 2 years of dead money after Steph and Draymond's current contracts expire where you're going to be tanking anyway. So who cares?
The one thing about Joel, there's a lot of stuff we just don't know. Obviously, we don't know the true severity of the knee. We know it's pretty bad, but what if it gets to a point where the knee's just so bad he might not be able to play and it gets to like medical retirement territory? Then having Embiid is much more low risk because the team that has him can just waive him. You still have to pay him, but if you apply for medical retirement, you don't have him on your cap sheet anymore. I wonder how viable that is. And that's stuff we just won't know.
Quick question about that, by the way, just if we're going to be a nerdy cap podcast. So the rule with medical retirement is you get the contract off the books, but if the guy plays a certain number of games, it goes back on your books. Because this came in with Brandon Roy and it came in with Chris Bosh. It's 10 games or is it 30 games?
Well, no, I'm pretty sure you have to. It's like you only get the money off once he misses a whole year.
Right. Like and I'm saying if he comes back and plays for another team, you do lose the relief. Because I remember this being a story for Brandon Roy. My question is, how many games was it? Is it 10 or is it 30?
I would imagine if he just, I don't know, I have to look into that. It's been a while since we've had medical.
I'm going to look up how many games Brandon Roy played for Minnesota because I remember this being a real story.
There was the most recent medical retirements. We had Chris Bosh.
And
the Heat got off his contract completely. And then
Mirza Teletovic too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think, was it the Nets or the Bucks who had him on their cap sheet? I want to say it was
I don't know whose cap sheet he was on. He signed with the Bucks. Brandon Roy played 5 games for Minnesota, so I think the magic number is 10, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. So, no, that's good that there's like a games played thing, a games played limit. Because if that, just to get him to hopefully try and he just can't even like make it, yeah, I think that makes sense that the team doesn't get the cap the cap hit back on their books. On the other hand, I could see Philly just now trying to spin Embiid as positive value.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
They shouldn't. If the Sixers right now could get off Embiid without trading a first or too many seconds, I should clarify, in your trade, the Bulls get 4 seconds. Those would come from the Sixers because the Sixers have 9 to trade. So if they're able to keep, if they're able to stay basically draft pick neutral, getting off Embiid, get players that have less years under contract, just do it.
The reason that they're getting the picks is A, they're giving up Vucevic because Philly needs a center, and B, they're taking on Buddy Hield, who's long-term money. So that's why they're getting the seconds, but that's the least consequential part of this trade. Also, if you're Golden State, like Quentin Grimes, like not exactly what you need because you still do have the shooting guard surplus, but a guard who can actually create his own shot and defend a little bit and make threes, that would really go a long way for them. Like, I don't know, if you're starting a lineup with Steph and Grimes and Embiid and Draymond, I'm kind of interested in that.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Philly?
Nothing else, Philly.
Okay. I don't have as many trades as you, but I want to throw one out to you. Maybe you've
this the LeBron AD one?
No, not yet. I'll save that for a little later. This one's a little more on the silly side, but just because it came to my mind, if you're bringing back Clay to the Warriors, I'm thinking, are there any players they could do reunions with? What if there's something to do with the Pelicans? Now, this would require like almost all their draft picks, if not like at least 3. The trade I've got it for in mind, they're sending out to the Pelicans: Jimmy, Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and I'm guessing 3 first-round picks. In return, they're getting Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, but they're taking on Jordan Poole or DeJounte Murray, New Orleans choice, and bring back Kevon Looney. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry. Did I just have a stroke? Like,
okay,
did you start? Okay. Did you? No,
Can
no,
they
no,
get
no, no.
Trey and Herb for all 4 of their first, Podziemski and Kuminga, while also taking back a really bad contract?
I have a lot of things to say here. Did this start with you trying to do a Kevon Looney reunion? Like, was that the impetus for this?
Kevon and Jordan Poole.
Oh my God. Like, just that's irresponsible even by our standards.
Yeah.
What
or
would
it could
be the point of that? Like, what are you doing if you have, like, if your team is Steph, insert shooting guard X, Herb, Trey, and Draymond, like, you're not winning the title with that. Like,
but you're getting Herb and Trey.
Interesting concept. Yeah,
you're getting Herb and Trey. You're like, that's what you're in it for. I don't think they're going to do that because they're not going to trade all their first. But if they could get both those guys, do they consider trading multiple firsts? I don't think I don't know if it's enough. Even though they're throwing in JK, who the Pelicans supposedly like, Podziemski, who I'm considering positive value, and they're taking back some bad money from the Pelicans.
I just dislike this for everybody. Yeah. This doesn't make sense for either team.
It's more conceptual. I'm trying to see if the Warriors can meet the value. I would say probably not. But I don't know, just something interesting considering the Warriors' interest in Herb Jones and Trey Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a cool concept. It doesn't really do it for me for either side. Do you want to do LeBron and AD?
Okay, and then we do have some in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. In case we don't overlap with them. But I do want to talk about AD and also just Clutch maybe packaging him with LeBron as well. I've thought about the possibility that maybe while AD was healthy, the Warriors potentially do a Kuminga and Draymond Green, probably Buddy Hield to make the money work. Trade for Anthony Davis, trade a first-round pick as well, and a Jimmy Butler for LeBron James swap. And that swap was something that was being circulated. I think Bill Simmons was the first one to put it out last month. And with Jimmy healthy, I think that actually kind of makes sense for both teams. The biggest thing for the Lakers is then they're punting on 2026 cap space, which I think they're going to want to start thinking about punting it anyways and just wait for 2027. Now, I wonder if there's a little more legs to this potentially being in the works, because I have to imagine the Warriors are going to call about LeBron. I would be shocked if they don't at least just check in on that. They made a big push to try to acquire LeBron 2 years ago. Didn't happen. LeBron wasn't really interested, but it seems like LeBron's not going to be back with the Lakers next year. I think if you're the Lakers, if you can get even this like super heavily protected first round pick with Jimmy Butler, I'm sure.
Can I stop you for a second?
I would guess they probably still wouldn't do it because they're still going to want to salvage the season. LeBron's been playing pretty well for being 41 years old. So I would guess they don't do it, but I just conceptually, I like the idea of the Lakers if they can get some draft picks, both for LeBron, but also that's what they use their cap space for, to try to stack draft picks. So they can. You're not
trading LeBron for value here. Like, LeBron has value. What you're getting the pick for is eating $54 million in dead money for next year. And I'm sorry, a deeply lottery protected first is not doing that. You got to send a good first to do that.
Yeah. So conceptually, I like the idea of Lakers doing that, but that pick by the Warriors probably won't cut it, considering the Lakers still want to be pretty good this year.
Dallas can have the heavily protected pick. The Lakers would have to get the good pick. Even that, I wouldn't really endorse for a few reasons. Number one, I don't know why I'm the only one who seems to like a fair number of 2026 free agents for the Lakers. Like, I think they should chase Peyton Watson. I think they should chase Quentin Grimes. I think they should chase Keon Ellis. I think they should chase Mitchell Robinson. There are a lot of guys who are going to be free agents this offseason that I do think make sense for the Lakers. And the other part of this is you can't just keep telling Luka, wait another 6 months and no, definitely then we'll put a contender around you. At a certain point, you actually do have to build a team that he can get excited about. Like, what happens when you don't get Giannis or Jokic in 2027? Like, oh, but in 2028, so-and-so is going to be available and then we'll get him for you. Like, at a certain point, you have to build a basketball team. So I wouldn't endorse this for the Lakers, but I do get where you're coming from and it's worth the conversation.
Yeah. So it is possible, though. The Warriors could bring in AD and LeBron within their apron restrictions and pair them with Steph this year. It's possible. All right, you go next.
Do the chat trades, because after that, I'm going to hijack this podcast with something else.
Okay, so first, Lozatron 4278 proposes Jimmy Kuminga and picks, doesn't specify which ones, for Kawhi and Zubats. To that, I would say this was definitely something we could have considered a month ago before the Clippers went on this run. I don't think the Clippers would be interested in that now.
How many picks? Hang on.
He said
how
picks.
Many picks?
He said picks. I know, but
like,
so I'm guessing
let's talk this out amongst ourselves. If I'm the Clippers and
it's three at least.
Yeah,
it's got to be three.
I think about that. I don't know if I would as the Warriors, but as the Clippers, I would think about that.
No, I think that's a great deal for the Warriors. We just know they're not going to accept that.
Yeah,
they're not going to be remotely interested in punting this year. So I think the value is there if it's 3 picks, but the Warriors wouldn't also give up that many picks. Let's see the next one. Butler for AD, Kuminga healed, and then MPJ as well. Okay, this is I'm not okay. I'm not understanding the way it was worded, but I guess it's can they get AD and MPJ? Yeah, it is possible. Even easier than pairing AD and LeBron, because MPJ makes $12 million less than LeBron. So if you're doing a pick in Kuminga and Moses and Hield for AD, and then you do Steph, he's saying, okay, now I understand. He's saying he wants to make it a Steph, Pajemski, Porter Jr., Green, Davis lineup. That's interesting.
I will say this, like, I guess with AD, you generate enough rim pressure that way that it would be worth it for Porter Jr. To be clear, we think that now with Jimmy out, getting Michael Porter Jr. doesn't really make sense because, again, as much as they could use more shooting, it doesn't mean anything without the rim pressure. Like, if you're just swapping Jimmy out and then giving up picks to get Porter Jr., that doesn't really make sense. Maybe with AD it would, but even then, I'm just kind of skeptical that it's worth it.
Well, I do think we should talk about the Michael Porter Jr. concept, because if that's still on the table, maybe the framework changes, because the Nets do have that extra cap space. What if now it involves Jimmy heading out for Porter Jr.?
I'm still not giving up the picks that Brooklyn would need.
Yeah, that is the challenge. You could do, though, Michael Porter Jr. in one small salary. So guys like Jalen Wilson or Tyrese Martin just for Jimmy Butler, and then it's about figuring out the picks. That's going to be difficult. I just wanted to bring that up because conceptually, I do think it does change how a Michael Porter Jr. trade could happen, because the Nets could have they do have the flexibility to take on Jimmy and make it a little easier. And then one more. Well, it's also AD related. It's Warriors trade Jimmy in the 2032 pick for AD. Dallas trades AD and Gafford for Butler and their 27 first back. Charlotte trades Connaughton in the Mavs 27 first for Gafford and the Warriors 2032 unprotected first. So that's interesting because the Warriors, they still only trade one pick, but it is arguably their most valuable one, a very late 2032 pick. I don't think if they traded, they're going to protect it probably. The last 2 picks the Warriors have traded, their 2030 and 25 have been pretty heavily protected.
No, you can't protect a pick in 32 because it can't roll over.
Well, you could protect it, but then...
I'm saying right? You can, but it would be irresponsible of Charlotte to let them.
Well, that's what the Wizards did. They got that 2030 pick. There was no
That was a
extra
press
protection they could
release
have done.
pick.
Yeah.
That was a press release pick. That wasn't a real pick. If I'm Charlotte and I could turn the 27 Mavs pick into the 32 Warriors pick unprotected, that is such a home run that I would do that in a heartbeat. There is something here. Like, this is an interesting suggestion. The trade was so big that I'd need to sit down and see it on paper before I could say, like, oh, we can roll with this. But obviously the Mavs 27 pick is most valuable to the Mavs. Where is Gafford going? Is Gafford going with AD to the Warriors?
I guess Gafford's going. No, Gafford's going to the Hornets.
The Hornets are getting Gafford and the 2032 Warriors pick? Pop the champagne for Charlotte.
They're trading. Yeah, and they're trading away the Mavs 27 first next year.
Yeah. Oh, that's a home run for them. I don't think Golden State should do it. I think the 2032 Warriors pick is just too valuable. But it's an interesting concept. Yeah.
And I know it's interesting to you because you did propose something around the Hornets trading their 27 pick back. Maybe not necessarily for Gafford, but I think maybe it was AD. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there is a way the Mavs can get that pick back. So, okay, let's continue for now. There's more trades coming in, but we could do them a little later.
Okay, you ready for me to hijack the pod?
Go ahead.
Okay, just do you agree with the following two statements? Statement number one, the Warriors will not and should not trade Stephen Curry unless he asks them to.
Yeah, I mean, they're not legally...
You agree?
They're not, like, legally blocked from doing that, but they like culturally, basically they have to. That's how it would have to go. He'd have to ask for it.
Yeah, he is Tim Duncan. He is Dirk Nowitzki. They're not trading him unless he asks. Period. End of discussion. Right. But statement number two, it would be in the Warriors' best interest if Stephen Curry went to them now and said, "I would like to be traded."
Yeah, we both think long term. I think there's a handful of teams you could look at and say, hey, if they're aging vet.
I found him.
That would be, you're kind of giving that team a life raft, but it's not really how the league works.
No, it's not really how the league works. But just indulge me. Can I go through a couple of Steph trades?
I'll just say I would argue the more realistic version of that is that the Warriors go up to Steph and say, hey, can we just trade everybody around you, including Draymond?
I have Draymond trades too. Don't worry.
And just put a younger team around you. That's like the more realistic version of that. But yeah, anyways, go ahead with your trade.
I have three teams that make some level of sense for Steph. The obvious one, and it's hilarious because he's reuniting with Durant, is Houston. So the trade I have is Fred VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jabari Smith, Reed Shepherd, and the 2029 better of Dallas or Phoenix going to Golden State. The Nets would have to take on Buddy Hield and Guy Santos to make the money work, and they would get a first out of this from Houston. So Houston effectively trading 2 firsts plus VanVleet, Finney-Smith, Jabari, and Reed for Curry. They would then be able to start a lineup of Stephen Curry, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, Kevin Durant, and Alfred Şengün.
What are the first? The 29 and what else?
29, Dallas or Phoenix, whichever was better. And I didn't figure out which Rockets first would go to the Nets, but like whichever one is least valuable.
Yeah, I would guess that the other pick in that framework shouldn't be a super valuable one like a
28 Rockets
Nets pick or another Suns pick, just because they're getting a lot of value in Jabari and Reed there. And I think for 38-year-old Steph, that's fantastic value. Yeah. Yeah, we know why it won't happen, but I do like
the Rockets would win the championship with this trade, right?
I think if a team trades, any team that trades for, like if you take the top 10 teams in the league, independent of the Warriors, and they bring in Steph, even for a lot of their rotation, chances are they probably become the title favorite. That's how great Steph has been this year.
Speaking of title favorites, they're not going to do this. It would be so out of character. The Thunder could just like clinch a three-peat if they did this, right? Hartenstein, Dort, Joe, and 3 first-round picks for Curry.
I think the Warriors would feel obligated to take the second best deal other than this.
Why? Don't you want to weaken the Thunder in the long term? I know they still have so much asset value that they'd be fine, but I don't know. Like, if anything,
they are not getting weakened at all. Like, that's just a dent.
No.
They've got 13 firsts over the next 7 drafts, 16 second-round picks. Like, this is a drop in the bucket for the Thunder.
This is like the slam dunk easiest three-peat I remember in a long time. If you could have SGA, Curry, Chet, and Jalen Williams, and you'd still have Case and Wallace, you'd still have Caruso. Like, you'd be fine with depth. You'd have most of your future picks. Like, if Curry went to that, and there would be something to this where, like, Steph could chase MJ 6 if he did this. Probably doesn't want to, but I'm just saying.
There would be something poetic about the Thunder. This is kind of them getting revenge for KD going to the Warriors if they end up trading for Steph and then becoming this super dynasty. That's good value. It's like the same thing as the Rockets deal. That is kind of like what the best offer I could see it being. But I'm serious. If they made Curry available, they would just make sure not to trade him to the Thunder. Hopefully, you can leverage the fear of trading him to the Thunder to get other teams to step up their offers.
See, this is interesting because I actually think they'd rather trade him to the Thunder than trade him to the Rockets, because I don't know that Curry, given the rivalry they've had with Houston for so long, would want to go to the Rockets. Like, wouldn't that be weird for him, considering all the playoff battles they've had?
I mean, realistically, Curry doesn't really want to go anywhere else, or else he would have made a push for it already.
Me.
Yeah.
Last one.
Yeah. And for those reasons, yes, that makes sense.
Last one is Detroit. Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, and 3 first-round picks for Steph and Buddy Hield.
Wow. I love that.
That's really fun, right?
That's so fun. The Pistons are the team where just about any of the hypotheticals for an all-star is super fun, but most of them have been for a big four to be an upgrade from Tobias. But, like, I think it was the last episode or 2 episodes ago, when we were talking about how Ja going to Minnesota would expedite Edwards out of Minnesota. And you named Detroit as one of those teams. That's just like another one right there, where if Cade can get an elite scorer shooter to be his co-star, his number 2 or number 1, whichever, depending on the hierarchy, depending who they get, just so much fun possibilities for the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, those are the 3 teams that I found that made any layer of sense. I looked at the Bucks too, just because it would be him and Giannis would be incredible together. I don't think there's enough asset value there now, and it would be so hard for them to match money. I looked at the Lakers. I just don't think the Lakers want to operate on that timeline, and I think the defense would still just be unsalvageable. So those were the 3 teams that made any degree of sense. I have 4 trades for Draymond if you want to do those too.
Let's do a quick chat. Rapid fire trade proposal break. Luis Teixeira proposes Kuminga, Hield, 26 first, doesn't say anything about protections, for Wiggins and Keshad Johnson.
I mean, I don't know. That makes you a little bit better, but I don't know what it really accomplishes. Like, I'd rather fundamentally have like the 13th pick in the 26th draft than have Andrew Wiggins and like losing the first round instead of losing the play-in. Like, it doesn't really materially change your circumstances. If they like really felt a pressure to get better this year for Steph's sake, then maybe you could talk yourself into it. But that's just not, I don't think going to be the goal.
Well, I feel like the Warriors would probably do that. I think they'd be happy to bring in Wiggins now, all things considered. It's more so the Heat. Is that something the Heat would be interested in?
I think the Heat getting another pick to try to flip for Giannis in the summer, they'd be very interested in that.
I feel like that's a pretty fair trade.
It's a matter of priority. It's that simple. Like, if the Warriors felt like we really need to get better this year for one reason or another, then you consider it. I just think the priority should be the future. Therefore, I would rather have the late lottery, mid first round pick, whatever it is, than get marginally better by getting Andrew Wiggins.
Kuminga and Butler for DeRozan, Sabonis, and Keon Ellis. I'll just say I think DeRozan's pretty antithetical to
Yes.
everything about the Warriors play. So he would be like one of the last guys going to the Warriors in any hypothetical Kings deal. Like just about anyone else would, you can say, hit other than DeRozan and Schroeder, almost anyone else on the Warriors I could see.
Kelly Oubre too. Like the
Kings,
guys who have tried to fit into that system and failed.
There was a Clippers thing. All right. A mock trade between the Clippers and Kings again. DeMar, Keon. I'm going to have to skip because I just don't. There's like a 13, but it's kind of confusing details. So last one. Butler, Moody, and 2 firsts and the second that they have to trade for MPJ. DeMar, same thing. Yeah, the Warriors aren't going to want DeMar. Okay. All right, so let's go on. Sam, you go.
Draymond. I think trading Draymond is like a little bit more feasible. Like, right? I mean, obviously anything is more feasible than trading Steph. But like, they would consider trading Draymond if they got a good offer, right?
I'm sure. I think it's kind of the same thing as what you said about the reasons the Warriors can trade Curry. It's Draymond's got like a similar type of 10-year security where I think the only thing keeping them from trading Draymond is Steph wanting him around. And if that changed, then I think they probably would have traded Draymond maybe already.
Right. I'm just going to throw these out. I mean, they're just fun ideas. Anthony Simons and a first for Draymond. Boston brings Draymond in to be their center for the playoffs.
That is pretty interesting. Would have to be probably a bigger trade. But then, yeah, if you're the Celtics. Well, no, but if you're bringing in Draymond, then you can getting under the tax. Well, they can still get under the tax later if that's a priority, but it's going to be a little tougher.
They would save a little bit of money in this deal, and then I think they'd be within range where dumping Hauser might be able to do it.
So which first then? The Celtics can either trade this year or next year's, and then a 2031.
I was going to say this year's.
Okay. Yeah. That kind of reminds me when the Lakers traded Odom for a first. I like when he was still like prime-ish, not prime, but like he was still like super productive. It's not like an amazing return for Draymond, but you're just getting what you probably realistically can. I would probably just hold on to Draymond's salary to try to do something a little bigger. Like if it was for the AD type trade or for Giannis, which I'm sure we're going to get into a little later because it's going to be really now with the Jimmy injury, especially, I think it's going to be challenging to get one of those guys without including Draymond in
it. Chicago, Zach Collins and Javon Carter and the Portland lottery protected 26 pick.
It's reasonable. Same reasons as like the Celtics one. Same type of value. If you're just looking for flexibility and get the best pick you can, yeah, that one's probably even a better pick than the Celtics.
There's one that I like find myself very drawn to. It would be very against their personality, but I like the idea of this team like getting the vet to guide them into their contention window. Kelly Olynyk, Jeremy Sohan, and just insert bad San Antonio first for Draymond with the idea that you're just kind of getting more front court minutes to help keep Wemby fresh. Plus, you get him as kind of the experienced playoff veteran, and that unlocks just so much defensive versatility for you. Like you wouldn't really run out that many lineups with both Castle and Draymond. You'd probably stagger them for shooting reasons, but you would just have the tools to defend like anybody in the NBA.
Yeah, if they're just trying to, I just don't see the Warriors liquidating Draymond, just trying to get whatever they can for him. I think they're probably looking to get players that can help Curry now.
Oh, so you want a player trade because they've got a player.
I think that's what the Warriors probably do if they're trading Draymond.
The Golden State Warriors get Karl Anthony Towns. The Sacramento Kings get Jonathan Kuminga. And the New York Knicks get Draymond Green, Malik Monk, Al Horford, and Keon Ellis.
I thought about Cat on the Warriors, I think that is actually one of the better fits if Cat does get traded. That's a really good return for the Knicks. I like that a lot for them. So the Kings are just doing Monk and Ellis for Kuminga, which is something I think that could end up being all they send up in real life.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's up to the Warriors. Like, is that who you want to pay up for? It's tough.
Are you even really paying up? You're trading Draymond and Horford and Kuminga for Towns.
Paying up as in you're dedicating
the money.
You're dedicating like a lot of money to him. Presumably you'll have traded Jimmy, and because you're gonna need
some
more
other
depth.
deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like it a lot more for the other teams. I'd like to know how the Warriors feel about Cat and his number, even if that's all they're giving up.
We're gonna have another episode later in the week where we talk about Cat more. I don't think Cat's value is that great. I could even see the Warriors asking for like the protected Washington pick that's going to become seconds to do this.
Right.
That is the last of my Draymond trades. What other Warriors stuff do you want to cover?
I'm trying to see. I think I've said all my stuff, but I guess we could just talk about Giannis and if this has any impact on it. My gut is that this makes them more likely to make that push for Giannis. I've seen a lot of people like yourself say that if they could get Giannis, okay, that is the one trade where they trade all their first to do it. Now, yeah, I feel like this injury probably motivates them to do it a little more now. Not that they probably had any like hesitation to do it. It's just a matter of Giannis being available and him wanting to go to the Warriors.
Right. I mean, I think if they could have gotten Giannis and it would have cost them a healthy Jimmy Butler, they would have thanked Jimmy Butler for his service and sent him on his way. The issue is that for now, Giannis does not seem to be available. Could that change? Like, I think even last night, somebody asked him, like, oh, do you think you'll be on the Bucks past the deadline? And he was like, I take it day to day. He has not said anything committal, right? Like, even in that interview where he's like, I won't ask for a trade, you read the actual language of his answers, and it was much more like, yeah, we'll see. This is how I feel today, and I don't know how I'll feel tomorrow. But if he did ask for a trade, I have a hard time believing at this stage that it would be to Golden State specifically. Like, we know the Knicks have been the team that had been on his radar. I think there are other teams he'd probably prefer to go to over Golden State. And again, if the Warriors had Steph, Draymond, and Giannis, what are they really? Like, are they beating the Thunder? No, I don't know that that's really worth it. And I don't know what their plan would be for building around Giannis after Steph retires. Like, you're not getting anybody as good as even old Steph. So you're kind of just setting yourself up to be in a situation where you trade for Giannis and you're like a second round team this year and maybe a second round team next year. And then after that, you have old Giannis on a very expensive extension and you either flip him for not that much value or you're kind of just stuck with him in that play-in range going nowhere. So I don't see how it really makes sense beyond like it's Giannis. It should, of course, make sense because anybody would want him, but I don't think that makes them a championship team. They're not deep enough.
Yeah. I just figured their urgency would just, at this point, have them pay out just about everything they need to do that. Kuminga.
I think they do it. I just don't think they should.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that covers just about everything. Any other thoughts before we close this one out?
Did we talk much about Kuminga-centric, like, separate trades? Like, is there anything there? Like, does this change anything? I don't think it really does.
Well, that's why we went through this. After now that we did, I think it's the same thing for the most part. I think if I had to predict, I'm guessing they still do a Kuminga trade. They bring in some kind of wing shooter to replace Jimmy and be an upgrade on whatever they had before. I would put a Jimmy midseason trade at like 30% chance at happening.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I keep getting fixated on is they should just go trade for Clay back. That's it. Like, don't give up any future first round picks. Don't do anything irresponsible that's going to reverberate several years down the line. Just go get Clay back and have like a feel good end to this year and next year where, like, look, everybody knows it's over. They're the faded dynasty, blah, blah, blah. But like, let these guys do one last retirement tour as a group, and then they can all figure out their own individual futures afterward. That's all I'd be doing.
The one big possibility I could maybe see happening is the very first thing you proposed, that where they swap Jimmy for AD, Kuminga as well for Clay, and maybe some other small pieces. It does feel like there is something that just makes so much sense that both these teams do something. Doesn't have to be quite at that level. It'll be a little complicated, but the Mavs are probably feeling a lot better about their chances of trading AD now with this Jimmy injury.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to make a trade, I don't know if they'll get a first round pick. I don't know that the value is really going to be great, but like something Kuminga centric with the Butler contract is definitely, or I would say probably going to be out there. I don't know how much sense that really makes because like I know AD isn't getting wrist surgery now, but he also might say hypothetically come back for 3 quarters and then suffer another injury. Like that's never happened to him before. Like again, I don't know if that really makes sense for them, but yeah, I get it. And if I'm Dallas, I look at the Anthony Davis contract right now and I would say, like, I know you want to get positive value. And if you can, great, more power to you. I would kind of just like to be rid of that contract and be rid of the pressure from Rich Paul to extend it, because I think I saw somewhere today that he wants a 3-year extension. That would take him through his 38th birthday. Like, I cannot imagine an NBA team doing something that irresponsible.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about where can he go, and the extension is that is such a tertiary thing. He's not going to get anywhere close to the max. It's going to be a lot less than what he's currently making, and he's not going to get 3 years.
No. If I were AD, I would just be thinking like, I've made enough money. I'm just going to play out my last 2 Supermax years, and then I'm just going to play where I want, right? Like, I don't think money is going to be enough of an issue on the next contract. That like, does he really need to get like, I don't know, an extra 25 a year compared to 15 on the mid-level? It doesn't really do anything for me. Like his max days are just over.
Yeah. If I'm the Warriors, I would definitely try to get AD at this point. I was already on board with that general swap. I think now there's probably more risk with keeping Jimmy at this point. Would you say?
Well, more risk of what?
If you can get AD, if you're the Warriors and you're able to extend him on like
there will be no extension. Absolutely not. No price.
Yeah. The problem is there is no real, with how bad the injuries have been, there is no really viable extension where he declines that $62 million player option and takes something less. Like
Rudy Gobert is
standard,
the model you're thinking of.
Yeah, Gobert and Holiday took 25%. They shaved 25% off and then got 3 or 4 years. So you're talking about giving AD roughly $50-ish million a year on this extension.
I wouldn't give him like,
be
clear about this, I wouldn't give him like 3 years at $30 million a year. Like that's too much for me.
So if you're the Warriors, you basically decide, do you want that extra year of AD where you already have Jimmy on the books next year for 57, 58. Okay, you replace him with AD, but are you comfortable with that additional year after that? That's what they need to sort out.
If it's 1 more year, that's fine, because realistically, I don't think Steph was going to ever retire after the 26-27 season. So at that point, you just say, okay, we'll kick the can down the road another year. We'll give Steph a big 1-year deal. We'll align him with AD like we did with Butler. And then we'll probably plan to hit the reset button after 27-28.
Yeah. It just seems like that's the biggest thing to you and I. AD to the Warriors definitely feels like it's going to get legs again. And I would expect we hear at least like something either confirming or denying that this could be a possibility in play.
I would imagine the Warriors are having meetings right now trying to figure out how do we respond to this. I don't think they know, but I imagine this will shape out relatively soon. We are now 16 days away from the deadline.
All right, Sam, go ahead, plug away whatever you got coming up. Want us to read?
Read CBS Sports. I'm going to write about some of these trades that I've proposed today, right now. I wrote about Jimmy this morning. I write about a lot of trade deadline things. Go read CBS Sports.
Subscribe to Third Apron, everyone. If you're new to the show, we are available on all podcast providers. Me and Sam are pretty active this time of year, maybe going 2-3 times a week. And subscribe to the Third Apron Substack. I'm going to be writing something about the Knicks, hopefully getting it up tomorrow, and their struggles and what their trade deadline could look like. And just stay tuned. We'll probably be back sometime again this week. Goodbye.